This video is something of a sequel to my previous Oblitus Casa video, which was planned to be released today, but pushed ahead due to 2.0 being released. So if you haven't seen it, you may want to before you watch this. I'll be honest, I was kind of hoping it'd be longer before we'd have to talk about Oblitus Casa again. Not that the game is bad, quite the opposite, but I literally just finished the original Oblitus Casa video and I'm kind of burnt on the subject, so my apologies if I sound tired. As I said in my last video on the game, Radiance took Oblitus Casa off of Game Jolt for a time so they could create 2.0 update. And it's hard to pinpoint what exactly this update is, because it's a completely separate program from the original, yet not completely different game. So I guess it's like the Stanley Parable Ultra Deluxe in that sense. I also said that once that game came out, I would cover it, though I didn't plan for it to come out right before I was actually going to release that video. Man, nothing is going according to plan for me lately. Anyway, how different is this update? Dang! Oblitus Casa 2.0 has a whole lot of quality of life and cosmetic adjustments to the game, while also making tiny adjustments to the gameplay to make the game feel a little new, while also a lot harder. And holy cow, the difficulty on this is no joke. But I feel that some of the problems that I had with 1.0, I guess as we're calling it now, were addressed but not fixed entirely with 2.0. That's not to say that none of them were fixed. Look, I can finally exit the game with the escape key now. Finally. Like I said, the game is separate from 1.0, so our save data isn't transferred over, which means we sadly have to start again on night 1. And night 1 is sadly not fixed. I'm not holding that against the game. I think that's just a problem with the Five Nights formula in general. Similar to before, we have Belial and Willie. Their mechanics aren't changed at all, save for being noticeably faster, but nothing out of control for this night. But that's not to say I didn't feel fear on this night. For one, the atmosphere is somehow even better than it was before. Most notably, you can hear Belial drawing on the notepad and see the eraser bits come off of it. But what terrified me was when I noticed that while Willie hasn't changed, the musical lure system has. Each camera now has a limited amount of music it can play. When I realized that I couldn't get through night 1 without using up all the music on a single camera, I started to sweat. Not because of what was happening, but because of the realization of what was to come. The cheesing methods I used to get through the first game were not going to work this time around. Oh boy. On the contrast, the camera flash cooldown is basically non-existent, and that's for a good reason. And that's it for night 1. But like in 1.0, at 5:30, Mother will jump scare you and take you to post-mortem. And look, the tutorials aren't horrible anymore. They're just kinda bad. You can stare at the text all you want to absorb everything, and the game only starts when you dismiss the paper. But while the text on it is better, it's still very vague. I can't imagine anyone who doesn't already understand this mode to know what to do based on these tooltips. Like, it still just says Mickey heads. There are a ton of Mickey heads here. Just specify the statue ones or make them gold and say that. Also, post-mortem is just flat out harder. Not only is it much harder to find the Mickey heads, but the shade AI is now much smarter, and it seemed like there was never enough time between me spotting a shade and stabbing your best friend. That is going to be taken out of context. It's also worth noting the subject of power. I didn't mention it that you had power for the lights in my first video because I didn't even notice it, but I ran out of light power surprisingly fast in this iteration. And okay, this may not be right, but I think that you can only find one head at a time in this version. Like, the heads are only made available to spot one at a time. But I have no way of proving such, so it's just my theory. It's also worth noting that post-mortem is mandatory on night 1. Unlike on 1.0, which only forced you into it on new games, you must clear post-mortem to complete night 1. This is good for learning, but night 1 just isn't fun enough to push for this every time. I literally just wrote scripts while I was waiting for night 1 to end, just to get another chance at post-mortem. And mostly I just die, restart, and... Huh. If I had a nickel for every time I died on night 1 to an Easter egg character in a fan game, I'd have 2 nickels. Which isn't a lot, but it's weird that happened twice, right? Alright, 5 attempts later, we made it through. I guess while we're on the subject of postmortem, later nights will require more Mickey heads to be found, and that's really where the changes end. Out of the 3 main modes in this game, postmortem was changed the least. And this was also the only postmortem I was able to beat. I never once beat it after this night. And now we plunge into the tunnels. Oh jeez. Hey look, another kind of bad tutorial and... Whoa! We jump from least changed to the most changed in the game. The tunnels have been revamped completely, rather than... this, we have a pseudo 3D environment to explore. On night 1, we're put into a 3x3 grid and we can roam around these tunnels, but Hourglass is still down here, and we can hear him stomping around. And the sound design here is fantastic. If you wear headphones, you can really pinpoint where he is on the map and when he's near, and it's great. But I wouldn't say it's fixed. The tutorial still stinks. We're told to listen to a sound to guide us, but I still have no clue what that sound is. The game doesn't know exactly how to deal with Hourglass. It says to turn a lot. Okay. It also says you can don't run from him, but not really. What you're supposed to do is find this room with a key in it and return to the starting point. Just say it like that. So you're better off just combing the sides of the map looking for this room. This room is weird because if you enter it while Hourglass is near, he'll camp outside of it, leading your fate up to a coin toss. But the map doesn't change when you die, so the biggest challenge is getting from point A to B to A, and that can be a pain. I literally barely escaped the first map, but the maps do change every night, very noticeably at that, giving them a reason to be separated on the continue screen. But I'd say these got easier as time went on. The maps get bigger, and thus it makes it more available space between you and Hourglass. I was able to do the final stage in one shot. All in all, the tunnels are still bad, vague, and a pain, but much less problematic than the original, and I can at least say I had fun this time. And they did all this in just a year, jeez. Night 2 introduces Daisy and the Face, who both had minor adjustments. The Face's thumps are much quieter, making you pay more attention, and he now must be flashed twice, similar to Night 5 in the original. He also doesn't make sound in the attic anymore. So I'm excited to see where that goes later. I died to him once, not knowing that the multiple takes on this night. Daisy stays mostly unchanged, save for two things. One, she doesn't disable cameras anymore. And oh my gosh, that is so nice, but it comes out of the trade-off of two, if you see her, you have to flash her. If you change cameras when you see her, she'll stun you. This makes her so much more annoying, but in a good way. In the original, I was so used to seeing Daisy and immediately changing the camera to ensure my flash was charged, and that was a nasty habit to break. But, you know, it was fun. But that didn't happen until night 3, where Photo Negative Minnie is back. She's not at all different, but it did seem like her AI was much smarter. That combined with a revamped Willie and Daisy, and this was the night where it started to get fun. Congratulations, Radiance. You improved your pacing by one night. Here's your cookie. Now on the night 4, Holy Hannah! Night 4 was when I realized that I've made a mistake. Pete and Dippy are back, and their functionality is the same as they were in 1.0. What has changed is the functionality around them. Pete just works so much better in the original because the fade going into the attic is so dialed back. This narrowed his difficulty down to just the right level. Unlike before, I never knew immediately if I was looking at Pete or the Face, and it felt like it just took the right amount of time to figure it out. But there were some times when I thought I was looking at Pete, headed back downstairs, realized, wait a minute, that was the Face, and then went back up, wasting so much time. And Dippy is mostly the same, but the new lure system makes him a pain. He's also very swift. Something I didn't mention before with the lure system is that it no longer works if a tune is more than one room away. So you can see a tune in one room, and in the time it takes you to switch to the next camera and use the sound lure, it will have moved, putting you in a pickle. This combined with the freakish speeds of all the threats, and trust me, you don't have a second to lose on this night. It took me a while to put together a strategy to beat it, being to camp Minnie on camera 8 and juggle Dippy and Willie on the eastern side of the house for however long the cameras had music, and keeping them in those areas felt like solving a Rubik's Cube at time due to how the sound system works. This is also another night where I spotted an Easter egg.
I personally feel the lure of this game would be a lot more interesting if you weren't taking it apart every 5 seconds.
Honestly, I'd argue that this night is harder than night 6 in 1.0. I know I'm not one to talk, I'm no 50-20 expert, but this demanded so many fibers of my brain than the first game ever did. And cheesing may be an option for Minnie, but for Dippy and Willie, yeah, they take some actual quick thinking to handle. And oh no, I don't want to do night 5, 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 I don't want to do night 5. Okay, on night 5, the game failed to load the save for the Face, who jump scared me and sent me to post-mortem, where I had to find 0 Mickey heads, even though I found 1. Alright, reset the game, try again. Okay, let's download 2.0.2 update and try again. Okay, I need to be careful about what I say, because if I sound like I'm complaining about this night, someone's going to patch it and make my life harder. Night 5 has changed slightly. The most notable change is Mikmik going into the attic. His noises are identical to the faces, so you do need to keep track of where Mikmik is when you hear attic noises. And he doesn't go back to the camera 1 like before, he just returns to the camera he was on. And he has an awesome model for when he's in the attic this time around, you know, right before he kills you. Speaking of the face, I think his difficulty was toned down drastically. The amount of time you need to put your lighter on him is now shorter, and the range in which you can have your lighter in is now larger. So dealing with the face just boils down to waving your mouse between 2 points, so it's not different from the notepad. I'm not complaining, it's just what it is. Also, Mother is always active now. She appears now even when Mikmik has eyes. And yes, I saw you comment section. Mikmik and Mother are technically the same entity, it's just either to find them both separately when they appear as such. And I think that's all the changes, and all in all, I think this night can be easier or harder than it was in 1.0, even night 4, depending on RMG. It's completely possible to run out of audio in a handful of cameras and completely lose your mic on Mikmik. What is that? Or you can have Mikmik just favor camera flashes over lures and have him no problem camping him, and what is that? Overall, it took me much less time to beat this than night 4. And after we beat it, we unlocked Cabin Face, rather than unlocking it on night 6 alongside the extras and such. Nothing too crazy, except for the fact that Lockjaw was planned to be in this game. Did I just miss that the first time around? Now, you may be wondering, if you unlock Cabin Face, what do you get for completing night 6? I have no idea. Night 6 in 2.0 is harder than night 5 now, and I never got past 1 AM. Custom Night is back, and they somehow made it better. Not only are presets unlocked from the start this time around, now we have post-mortem custom nights. How many heads? But from what I could find, turning off the difficulty cap has been removed completely, and there is no exclusive post-mortem shades. Challenge nights are now back with added hard modes. Jeff is somewhat different, and I found him so much fun. Slender is... I like the new tendrils, but I have no idea how Slender works. On the other hand, Smile Dog. I found out what I was doing wrong. I'm just bad. And Eyeless Shack actually made sense and was fun. You use your ears to track him down like Hourglass. Though if you take a picture from too far away, it's game over. So yeah, most of the footage I got looks like this. Man, these adjustments are all a blast, and I feel a bit better going into the post game than I did with 1.0, which is great. There's just something I should at least point out. 2.0 solves the original's pacing problem, but I fear it introduces a new one, and that's the accessibility of it. I've been giving this game a lot of praise, and I mean it. I think this 2.0 version is definitive, and I had a blast with it again. But I've also been injecting Oblitus Casa into my veins for the past few weeks. Playing 1.0 and 2.0 back to back has been very taxing, but it got me thinking. How does 2.0 play for someone who hasn't even played 1.0? And that's what I fear to be a huge problem with 2.0. This feels like it was designed for people who played 1.0, and it works great in that department. But as much as they tried with the new tutorial texts, the amped up difficulty makes this game hard to recommend to newcomers. I may be completely wrong, and somebody who has never heard of FNAF could pick up this game easily. However, I want to at least acknowledge my prolonged exposure to this game that may shape my opinions on it. And my final opinions are as such. Oblitus Casa 1.0 is one of the greatest FNAF fan games ever, but it was bogged down by poor pacing and lack of instructions. Oblitus Casa 2.0 improves upon the original gameplay, amps up the difficulty, touches up on some spots, and gives a decent attempt at fixing the problems of its predecessor. And it might be my new favorite fan game of all time. Pretty bold, I know, and I might change that by the time I upload this video, and the future does look bright for fan games. But right now, Oblitus Casa 2.0 has given me one of the best experiences in the FNAF franchise. But I can't imagine that I would feel like that if I didn't just play through 1.0, so I won't hold that thought on a high pedestal. And don't make me play it at gunpoint, I'm tired. Here's to you, Radiance. You've truly made art out of your free time, and I aspire to that. One day. Maybe once I find an engine. Has anyone made a fan game in Godot yet? Oh well, someday. Now, thank you so much for watching. This was definitely a harder video to make, so I appreciate you watching this far, and yeah, that's all from me. My name is AJ Plays, and oh yeah, we have that whole other game to cover. Sweet cheese!